Climate change has been considered the biggest challenge to be faced by producers in recent decades. As average temperatures around the world increase, distribution of rainfall changes, sometimes extreme changes in weather occurring, with frost or heat waves, climate change is intensifying. In addition, this change to weather patterns make plants susceptible to the rising strength of pests and disease. Agriculture is at risk. Therefore, today we are going to finalize the analysis of the environmental pillar with one indicator of extreme relevance for the moment, for producers and society as a whole: emissions and climate. Hello, my name is Nathana, and today we are going to talk a little about the awareness of producers in identifying the biggest causes of greenhouse gas emissions, practice carried out to reduce these emissions, and management of carbon credits. Agriculture is closely linked to climate. That is, any climate change can affect the development of plants and consequently reduce productivity. We know that global warming has intensified in recent decades, and if it reaches 2 degrees Celsius, as is still predicted for the 21st century, drought periods will be extreme, making agricultural production difficult or even impossible in several regions of the country. This is worrying, right? Another major problem caused by climate change is increasing appearance and strength of pests and disease, such as coffee rust. Coffee rust is one of the biggest challenges for global coffee production, as the disease is able to adapt to different climates. In addition to problems like coffee rust, there are also extreme and unexpected events, such as fires, frost, cyclones, heat waves, rain, and intense winds. With all these issues to deal with, Brazilian coffee growers are facing a sharp reduction in production expectations. Take, for example, the 2022 crop, which has been drought-graded due to the extreme and unexpected frost and droughts of the last year. It's a delicate situation and it requires immediate mitigations. Staring down these changes, producers are already looking for options to help mitigate these effects. Measures to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, among others. Today, this is one of the most, if not the only, proven alternative to dealing global warming. Many practices have been used to try to reduce the emissions of these greenhouse gases. However, the first step is for producers to be aware and identify which are the biggest causes of greenhouse gas emissions on their property. For example, knowing how to identify incorrect soil management and its consequences, avoiding too excessive use of nitrogen fertilizers and limestone, and opting, whenever possible, for renewable energies. For producers to survive and thrive, it's necessary to raise awareness and consequently adopt measures that can mitigate the effect of climate change. In coffee farming, according to several studies and field monitoring, the hard work from boots on the ground, it has been proven that carbon is sequestered even on properties where coffee is produced using conventional methods. This is because the activity also sequesters more CO2 than it emits greenhouse gases. However, when comparing conventional management with management where there is the adoption of good practice, there is one increase in carbon sequestration. With these good practices, carbon is captured more effectively in the soil and in the plants, reducing emissions into the atmosphere. Another important action in this indicator is the adoption of good practice to reduce these emissions and increase carbon sequestration. And what would those practices be? Many of these practices have already been shown in the soil and nutrients management and crop protection videos. I will leave the links above. But there are important points worth repeating. So let's look again at some practices that help mitigate emissions of these harmful gases. Reusing of organic compost such as straw and coffee husks. Cultivate cover crops between the lines. Prioritize the use of biological inputs to control pests and disease. Avoid the use of herbicides, which are weed control products, and prioritize methods of mechanical control of the weeds, favoring the health of the soil. Adopt afforestation and windbreaks to increase carbon sequestration. The use of renewable energies. Last but not least, it's important to mention the actions of management of the carbon credit. Did you know that there is already the possibility of buying carbon credits, even by the producers? We have already commented, even when the management is conventional, sequester carbon. And in addition, the areas of legal reserve and permanent preservation areas that are maintained by producers also play a fundamental role. But to prove and quantify this, it's necessary to hire specialized companies and professionals to carry out a specific inventory of the preservation area. And this service is still too expensive and impractical for most producers. However, producers can also opt for one inventory of the property, which, although expensive, is a little more valuable. Thus, knowing how much they emit in coffee production, they can buy credit in the market to offset carbon emissions. It's the famous carbon neutral coffee. So yes, there is a neutral product. But for it to reach the final consumer and remain neutral, it's necessary that the entire chain and the transport are also balanced. To summarize, a carbon credit is the representation of a ton of carbon that is no longer emitted into the atmosphere, contributing to the reduction of the greenhouse effect. Therefore, if a bag of coffee emits 0.07 metric tons CO2, the producer can buy this amount of carbon and neutralize its emission. It's important to emphasize that there are specific projects on the market that are enabled for carbon emissions in Brazil. Now, the main projects are in the Amazonas, and they are monitored projects that in a controlled and safe way commercialize carbon credits and help companies and producers balance the level of GHG emissions in the atmosphere worldwide. As you can see, there are many complex details necessary for producers to help prevent climate change. Going along with that, we are here to help you understand the actions of producers. Knowledge is power for producers and for anyone who wants to work in agribusiness. Thank you for checking out our video. If you liked it and you want to learn more about what producers in Brazil are doing to ensure responsible sourcing, then be sure to click like and subscribe, so you will be notified when we post new content. You can also listen to the reaction podcast for today's video at the link in the description to get another perspective on the topic.